Your grandfather spent every Saturday under the hood of his '67 Mustang, and he'll tell you that car had a soul. Your brand new Honda Accord? According to him, it's basically a smartphone on wheels, built to break, designed to be replaced. But here's what nobody talks about. That belief isn't just an opinion. It's a psychological phenomenon, and it runs far deeper than anyone realizes. Think about what it meant to own a car in 1965. You didn't just drive it, you understood it. You could feel every vibration, diagnose every knock, and fix most problems with a wrench and a Saturday afternoon. The car wasn't just transportation, it was an extension of who you were. Your competence, your independence, your identity. When something goes wrong with your car today and the mechanic plugs in a laptop to diagnose it, that feeling of control, that deep sense of mastery, completely disappears. And the human brain does not handle that loss quietly. There's a psychological principle called the illusion of control. When people feel they understand and can influence something, they trust it. When they don't, they fear it. Baby boomers didn't just drive cars, they understood them on an intimate mechanical level. Modern vehicles, packed with thousands of lines of code, adaptive sensors, and self-calibrating systems, are completely alien to that worldview. And the brain's response to something alien and uncontrollable is always the same. It labels it as dangerous, inferior, temporary. But there's something even more fascinating happening beneath the surface, and it involves the way memory itself is constructed. Scientists call it rosy retrospection. Your brain doesn't store memories like a video recording. It stores them like a highlight reel, filtered, edited, and emotionally charged. Every time a boomer remembers their 1972 Chevy truck, their brain replays the pride, the freedom, the road trips, and the Saturday mornings in the driveway. It quietly edits out the 3 times the carburetor failed, the rust that ate through the floor pan, and the fact that the car needed a tune-up every 6,000 miles just to keep running. The good is amplified, the bad is deleted, and what's left is a myth. A golden version of the past that no modern vehicle could ever compete with, because modern vehicles are being judged in real time, flaws and all. Now layer on top of that something called confirmation bias, and you start to see how bulletproof this belief system becomes. Once someone is convinced that modern cars are disposable, their brain automatically seeks out evidence that confirms it. A news story about an expensive EV battery replacement? Proof. A friend whose transmission failed at 80,000 miles? Proof. A recall notice in the mail? Absolute proof. Meanwhile, the data showing that modern cars last longer, break down less frequently, and are dramatically safer than anything produced in the 1960s or 70s, that data gets filtered out completely. It doesn't fit the narrative, so the brain simply doesn't retain it. And here's where generational identity becomes the most powerful force in this entire equation. For many baby boomers, mechanical competence wasn't just a skill. It was a core part of how they defined themselves as capable, self-reliant adults. Being able to fix your own car meant you weren't dependent on anyone. It meant you were resourceful, smart, tough. That identity was built over decades, reinforced by culture, by their fathers, and by the world they grew up in. Now imagine what it feels like when the thing that defined your competence becomes irrelevant overnight. When the skills you spent a lifetime developing are suddenly useless because cars now require a computer science degree instead of a socket set. That's not just inconvenience, that's a threat to identity. And when identity is threatened, the mind doesn't respond with curiosity. It responds with rejection, with contempt, with the absolute conviction that the new thing is wrong and the old way was right. This is why the argument is never really about cars. When a boomer insists that his 1969 Camaro was built better than any car on the road today, he's not making a mechanical argument. He's making an existential one. He's saying, the world I understood, the world where I was capable and competent and in control, was better than this one. The car is just the symbol. The real conversation is about relevance, about aging, about the terrifying feeling that the world has moved on without you. And this psychological response isn't unique to boomers. Every generation experiences it eventually. The difference is that the automotive world changed faster and more completely than almost any other consumer product in history. In the span of a single generation, cars went from purely mechanical machines to rolling computers with more processing power than the Apollo spacecraft. That's not a gradual evolution, that's a cultural rupture. And human psychology is simply not designed to adapt to ruptures that fast without resistance.
There's also something deeply sociological at play. Boomer culture celebrated the car as a symbol of freedom, rebellion, and the American spirit in a way no generation before or since has matched. The muscle car era, Route 66, the drive-in, the road trip, these weren't just activities. They were the foundation of an entire cultural identity. When modern cars feel more like appliances than icons, it doesn't just feel like automotive decline. It feels like cultural erasure. Now consider the economics, because this layer adds a completely different kind of psychological sting. The boomers who grew up working on their own vehicles saved enormous amounts of money by doing their own repairs. Oil changes, brake jobs, alternator replacements, all done at home with basic tools by ordinary people. Modern cars have essentially eliminated that possibility for the average person. A simple sensor replacement can cost $600 at a dealership. A battery replacement on a hybrid can cost thousands. From a purely economic standpoint, the perception of disposability isn't entirely irrational. The financial barrier to repair has never been higher. But the critical error is comparing that cost in isolation, without comparing it to the dramatically reduced frequency of repairs that modern engineering has made possible. A 1970s vehicle needed constant attention to survive. A modern vehicle can run for 150,000 miles with little more than oil changes and tire rotations. The math is actually better today. But math doesn't comfort a wounded identity. And it doesn't compete with a memory that's been emotionally polished for 50 years. There's one more psychological layer that rarely gets discussed, and it might be the most human one of all. When we get older, the world inevitably starts to feel less familiar. Technology accelerates, culture shifts. The things that once made us feel capable and informed start to feel increasingly foreign. For many boomers, dismissing modern cars as disposable isn't just about cars, it's a coping mechanism. If modern things are inferior, then the unfamiliarity isn't a loss, it's a choice. It's not that the world has moved past them, it's that the world went in the wrong direction. That reframe protects something incredibly fragile and incredibly human. The need to feel that your era, your experience, your knowledge still matters. And honestly, that need doesn't belong to any one generation. It belongs to all of us. The millennials who insist vinyl sounds better than streaming. The Gen Xers who think modern movies have lost something the classics had. The instinct to protect the world that made you is one of the most deeply human impulses that exists. It just shows up most visibly when the gap between then and now is widest. So the next time someone older tells you they don't make cars like they used to, resist the urge to correct them with statistics, because they're not really talking about cars. They're talking about a version of themselves, competent, in control, and at home in the world, that they're quietly grieving. And no data point in the world has ever healed a grief that runs that deep. The real question isn't whether modern cars are better. They are. The real question is what we lose when progress moves faster than the human soul can follow.